Now, what you need to know about me is that I became a professional freelance jazz trumpet player in Chicago at the age of 23. And at that time, I had a usable high E, high F. F sharp was iffy, double G was non-existent. I think it's an important point that I was able to still build a career even without the notes above high F. And it was based on the other things that I could do, like reading and playing in a section and improvising and knowing tunes and stuff like that. I did not start consistently playing double high Gs until I was well into my 30s. I never even played a double high C on my instrument until I was into my 40s. And now I'm getting up to these notes every day. How did I do it? That's what I'm going to share with you in this video. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. My name is Tito, and welcome to Jazz Mind, where we break down the process to learn how to improvise, how to make the trumpet easier, and mindfulness for musicians. Thank you so much for everybody for your warm thoughts and well wishes regarding my surgery that happened last week. I am feeling great. In fact, to be honest, I did not think I would feel this good this quickly. I'm walking around. I've even been playing the horn. I had some people reach out to me and express concern about my surgery and if I'm ill. And I want to assure everybody that this was an elective surgery. I am not sick. This decision was at least 10 years in the making, if not longer. But I decided to go through with bariatric weight loss surgery. I have a lot of thoughts to share on it, but I thought rather than do it in my music videos, I'm actually going to go ahead and start a different channel. I probably won't be posting there nearly as often as I do Jazz Mind, but at least it's going to track my weight loss journey. And for those of you interested in learning more about it, I'm still in the process of editing my first video, so I will let you know when my first video drops and what the new channel is called and everything. Stay tuned. Next thing, my next album on Origin Records called Urbanescence is set to drop October 21st. At that point, it will appear on all streaming platforms, but I know that I've got some huge diehard Tito fans out there that just wish they could get a hold of the album sooner than October 21st. Well, guess what? Ta-da! Look at that. I've got physical CD copies in my possession, ready to mail them off to you. That's right. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, that's great, Tito, but I don't really listen to CDs anymore. When can we actually download your album? Do I have to wait till October 21st? Actually, no, because I have just uploaded my album to Bandcamp. So if you want to purchase Urbanescence, whether the physical CD or the digital download, all you got to do is check my link to my Bandcamp. It's just titocarrillo.bandcamp.com. 2 of the tracks right now are available to check out in their entirety. Go check that out and see if that's something you want to buy. Obviously, when we hit October 21st, this will hit all streaming platforms. But if you just can't wait, or if you have a strong desire to support Tito and his large family, then guess what? I am ready to receive your support. Thank you so much. Now let's run up those numbers on Bandcamp. Before we get into the video, I have a disclaimer for you. I am not a doctor. I am not a surgeon. I am an expert, however, at being Tito. I have walked a very specific journey, and I'm here to share that journey with you of how I've learned to expand my range. I am not telling everybody they have to do what I'm saying. YouTube is heavily populated with every kind of video and theory about how to play high notes. So to be honest, I even debated, should I even talk about this? There's so much material out there. But here's the reality. There's one reason and one reason alone why I want to share this with you, is because I actually think this video is going to help some people. It's going to help people learn that high notes are not to be feared, and they are not something that you're born with, but they are something that can be learned and can be made to actually feel easy on your instrument. So before you come at me in the comments for anything that I say that might go contrary to your, theoretical approach to playing high, remember, I'm just sharing what I did. I'm sharing what I think about. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. Now let's get back to the reason you're here, which is to talk about how to make high notes easier on the trumpet. But I've got a question for you. What is the hardest part about learning how to play high notes on the trumpet? Maybe for you, it's learning how to ascend and remain relaxed in your face and not just like pinch, squeeze, hope, and pray. Or maybe you feel that your face is just not cut out for it yet, or you haven't developed the requisite strength in your corners, in your face, your embouchure muscles, to have the strength and the endurance and stamina to be able to play high. I used to think the same things that I just mentioned, but if I were to answer the question now of what makes it hard to learn how to play high notes, I have two responses. The first one is letting go of the idea that it takes more air to play high. This thought has sabotaged me and so many other trumpet players, I feel. And guess what? It makes sense, because when we hear fabulous players like Wayne Bergeron playing blistering high A's and John Faddis playing blistering who knows what, because it's way up there, and Roger Ingram and all of these amazing high note players, they're putting so much power through the instrument, right? When trumpet plays high, it's unlike any other instrument that plays high. And so it would make the most sense to think, oh yeah, John Faddis, he's blowing down the house when he's playing those notes. Wayne Bergeron, he's aiming for the next county. And what I've learned about myself is that it's the opposite of that that's true. Only when I began learning how to control my upper register at a soft volume using a tiny amount of air was I able to gain control of those notes and eventually have them open up. If you think going into learning how to play high that it's supposed to be physically exhausting and demanding, then you've already attached in your mind that high notes equals hard work. Let me tell you something. I've had the great opportunity to sit right next to John Faddis on many, many different occasions over the years. And I guarantee you, all of the loud stuff that you hear him do, he has the control to be able to do that at a soft volume using very little air. So how did I begin the process of using less air in the upper register? Well, if you've watched any high note trumpet YouTube video, which of course we all have, you've heard the word compression. What does it mean when you compress something? When you compress a file, for example, you make it smaller. So when we talk about compression, and usually we're talking about the areas of the body like the abdomen, and we're usually talking about aperture size or tongue arch or what have you. And these are methods of compressing the air. But I like to use a different analogy. I like to use the analogy of straws and focus on the shape of the airstream and specifically the diameter of the airstream. So I've got a few straws. Don't do that. So I've got a few straws here. So here's a regular fast food straw that you would find at any fast food restaurant. And, take a look at the diameter. To me, this, and again, these are not exact measurements, okay? This is kind of what my low register airstream looks like. And I can move a decent amount of air through this. I mean, obviously, how much air can you actually move through the hole that's in your mouthpiece when you really think about it? But this is a good size straw. When I'm actually creating my low register embouchure, it probably looks something like this. Right? So you notice it's not even that big to play in the low register. Okay, well, what happens when I want to play in the middle register, like between maybe middle C to top of the staff G? Well, now I have another straw that's a little bit smaller than that previous straw. You see that? And so you see the size of the airstream is shrinking now. And immediately I feel more resistance, meaning I cannot blow as much air as I was in the other straw. What about if I want to get from G on top of the staff up to high C, high D, something like that? Well, look at this little straw. You can see it's much smaller than the previous straw. And this is just to symbolize the shape that the airstream is making when I play the trumpet and when I ascend on the trumpet. People, how much air can you fit through that? Not very much. And if you try to cram a bunch of air through here, what's going to happen? My eyes are going to bug out. I'm going to get this huge vein popping out of my forehead right here. My neck muscles are going to contort. All kinds of problems are going to start happening. What if I want to get up into the extreme upper register, into the double G, double A, double high C area? Well, I don't have a straw small enough, but I found this. This is the needle from an air pump to fill up your, basketball. Okay. In order for me to learn how to access double high G, double high A, all the way up to double C, I had to learn how to make my airstream this small. I probably shouldn't be doing that. This probably has lead in it. Oh, well. All right. So if we need to make the airstream change sizes, get slightly larger in diameter in the low register, and then get smaller in the upper register, how do we actually go about doing that? Well, again, I'm not speaking for everybody. I can only speak for myself. But this leads me to my second response to the question of why learning high notes is so difficult. And that is this. I have found that the key factors for learning range happen internally in the body. That means we can't see them. And this makes things difficult. When you see a piano player playing incorrectly, you can see their hands and you can correct them. You can correct things like posture. We can correct things like finger position and hand positioning. But how do you correct something you can't see? It's happening inside your body. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and break down the areas, those factors that we can't see that really helped me to unlock a new part of my upper register. The first area is the positioning. Can you stop? And the first area is the positioning of the tongue inside the mouth. I can tell you that hardly any of the teachers that I studied with really spoke very much about the tongue. I know that some schools of thought don't like to mention the tongue at all. And that's fine. Hey, whatever works for you, that's fine. But for me and for where I'm coming from, by the way, that's really important. Where are you coming from? Because I strongly believe that there are people who naturally play with an elevated tongue position and they don't even know it. It's just normal for them. And things like playing in the low register might give them some trouble, but they might have gravitated towards playing those high notes because it was a little bit easier for them. That's cool. That's fine. But then there are others who come from, and I think this is the way more common issue, that come from really being open. And I got to say, it's probably because of the way we learned how to play in elementary band. You know, what are the first notes they teach you? Low C. Why? Why don't they start you on middle G? Why don't you work with a beginning student and actually train them to create the middle G sound on the trumpet before any other note? I wonder how many trumpet players would have a much easier time of navigating range on the instrument if that were their baseline. I digress. I want to show you the reason why I started experimenting with tongue position. And I've been saying all along that this is something we can't see, but hey, maybe we can see something. This little video snippet is from Sarah's Horn Hangouts, which is a vlog and podcast by Sarah Willis. Now, Sarah Willis is not just a French horn player. She is one of the greatest French horn players in the world. She is in the Berlin Philharmonic. She has a wonderful podcast. If you haven't seen it, Arturo Sandoval has been on there. Wynton Marsalis has been on there. Well, in this episode, she agreed to play, I'm assuming, a plastic horn, and to lay down and to get inside an MRI machine so that you could see an X-ray kind of video readout of her actually playing and see what's happening inside her mouth. Take a look at this. She starts this exercise. She's going to go from her extreme low register, and then she's going to keep ascending the partials, the harmonic series, all the way up into her extreme upper register. Yeah. Pay attention to her lips, pay attention to her jaw, and see how, covering that wide of range affects kind of the front of her mouth. Take a look. So I observed a couple of things here. Number one, her tongue not only started low in the low register, but it also started kind of back in her mouth. And then as she ascended, it started coming up and forward until at the very, very top of her range, the tip of the tongue was right there at the precipice of her aperture. The other thing I noticed is that her lips never seemed to actually get too wide open, even in the extreme low register. It was really her tongue getting way down, but her lips were closer together, but they were a little bit separated. And then as she got into her upper register, they got really close together, right? And you could see the jaw come up a little bit. And then as she descended, she started up top and she started articulating notes and came all the way back down. That's when you see her kind of return, open her lips slightly, the jaw comes down. But again, it doesn't get like wide open. Otherwise, her lips wouldn't vibrate. I've got another example that I want you to check out. Also, an even shorter video. This is from Douglas Yeo, who is principal trombone of the Boston Symphony. And guess what? This year happens to be my colleague at the University of Illinois, where he's going to be teaching for this entire year. Take a look at this similar video of him playing a range exercise on the trombone. All right, so we're going to watch this video a couple of more times. It's super short. This time around, I want you to just pay attention to the movement of the tongue specifically. I really like this video because he's got that constant low note that he comes back to every time, and he keeps expanding the range, one partial at a time. So this really shows you how he's set up in the low register and what he needs to do to play in the upper register. You saw the back of his tongue really dancing around in his mouth, especially as the intervals got really wide apart. Now I want you to watch the video one more time, and I want you to pay attention to his aperture, his lips area, and to his jaw. In this example, you really see a lot of movement with the jaw and with the lips. It almost seems like the jaw is moving with the movements of the tongue. And so watching this really confirmed with me, hey, if it's good enough for principal trombone of the Boston Symphony, if it's good enough for Berlin Philharmonic level French horn master, it's good enough for me. So a couple of things I want to tell you about utilizing the tongue. It's important to think about the syllables for the various registers that you're in. Here are the syllables that I like to use. They might be a little bit different than what you've heard in the past. So when I think of the low register, I think of aw, right? Everybody say aw. And then middle register, maybe it's because of my bilingual status, but I like to think almost like saying, hey, what's the matter with you? Aw, And then as we get into the upper register is aw, e, aw, sh. Now, here's what is very important. I know a lot of people struggle with throat constriction, and I'm here to say that the throat really has no business in trumpet playing as far as I'm concerned. I think you should be able to shift the movement of your tongue, the positioning of your tongue inside your mouth without engaging the throat. And I want you to practice that right now by simply blowing air while shifting your tongue position from aw to e and back down without stopping that air even once. So it's going to be like this. You even hear the sound that the air is making from my, hopefully I'm not like blowing it like it's a windstorm here, but hopefully you can hear the sound of my airstream changing, right? Listen one more time. I'm shifting between those different size straws. That's the way I'm thinking about it. Now let's talk about the other area. I mentioned that there are two main primary areas that I began to focus on that helped me break through. And the other area is what I just simply call the lower body breath support. I call it lower body because a lot of people have a lot of different theories on it. Some people think it's mostly diaphragm. Others talk about the abdominals, even around the sides of the rib cage, your intercostals, the muscles of the lower back, and even the gluteus. I think I probably use all of these at some point, to be honest with you. The main thing is that you understand that trumpet playing is not simply an upper body task alone. Trumpet playing involves the use of your lower body. And in fact, when I hear players play, I can tell almost immediately if they're more of an upper body trumpet player or if they're actually utilizing their core and their lower body. How often am I engaged in this area of my body? All the time. Repeat, all the time. I am not, however, engaged at the same amount or the same usage. Obviously, when I start heading up into the upper register, or even when I start playing louder, I am going to intensify my use. And yes, on my highest notes and when I'm playing my loudest volume, it's almost similar to the feel of doing a lower body crunch. I would say more so like you're lifting something heavy from your lower body. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, isn't that excessive tension? Well, let's think one more time about high notes. Do high notes involve energy? Yes. Does that energy come from the trumpet alone? No. There's got to be some kind of energy coming from your body. I've seen some amazing players who can play high, kind of gurus who don't seem to be doing very much at all when they're playing high. But I would say I don't think I've ever seen anybody who's not doing anything and still able to play high. Some energy is being expended somewhere. And would you rather have that as your left arm driving into your face, or would you rather have that coming from your lower body? Now keep in mind, I'm expending energy from my abdominals and surrounding muscles. And when I get up above high C into double G and that territory is when my gluteus starts taking over. That's just me. Hey, that's me. But at no point do I want to collapse the chest area. I want my shoulders down. I want my neck tall. I want my head right on top of my neck in alignment with my body, right? Upper body should be relaxed and chest should be wide open like a proud soldier. So maybe you're someone who you're not sure if you're utilizing your lower body breath support or you're not sure if you're using it enough. Well, I want you to just practice breathing in a very specific way. I don't breathe like this normally. Like this is very much a trumpet specific way of breathing. I've heard all along, hey, just breathe naturally. You've known how to breathe since you were a baby. But guess what? I couldn't play a double C when I was a baby, okay? I couldn't even play a middle C. I kind of sucked. More importantly, that philosophy wasn't working for me. I had to start thinking in a different way. I had to start doing something different from where I was. I want you to place your hand on your belly as you breathe. This has become, by the way I breathe all the time on the trumpet. I don't care if I'm playing only middle register soft stuff. I'm going to take in air from the bottom of my lungs up. But as I do that, I'm going to bring my belly button inward. My belly is not going to come out as I intake. So practice this. We're going to take a nice, slow, easy breath, fill up the base of the lungs, but bring the belly button in. And then I want you to form your embouchure and start blowing in a like a middle register straw size air strain, like this. One more time. And make sure you're not like fighting to try and cram a bunch of air into this middle register setting. What you're going to notice is you have this lower body breath support ready to excite that air whenever you want. And that's the real key to this whole thing, is that you're ready, you're prepared. If you're improvising, for example, and you're playing a line and you want to jump up into the upper register, I don't have to like use a whole different way of playing. No, my breath support is always ready to make those kinds of jumps and leaps. If you believe that maybe you're not using your lower body breath support as much as you should be, this is where you want to start practicing soft, long tones in the upper register, holding them out for a really long time. If that sounds painful to you, I'd say more than likely you're not using this area as much. I feel I can do this because my airstream is protecting my lips and kind of pushing that horn away thanks to my core and my abdominal muscles. So as you played that A, did you feel your lower body working to sustain that note? Or did it feel like a lot of excessive mouthpiece pressure? I can tell you that I started with my belly button coming inwards, but the longer I sustained that note, I felt my belly button continuing to go in and in towards my spine, kind of emptying out the base of my lungs, almost like somebody's squeezing an accordion like that. Again, that energy is coming from my belly button area and around the waist like that. Not above the sternum, chest is open, shoulders relaxed, neck tall. All right, you notice I haven't mentioned the lips yet. So what about the lips? Don't they play a role in playing high? Well, yes, of course they do. And don't they change? Doesn't the aperture size change as you go between different registers? Absolutely, no doubt. And I don't want to think about it. That's right. You know, I've known a lot of teachers and methodologies that don't like to talk about the tongue, for example. I've become that way with the aperture. And I'll tell you why. Again, this is just me. I'm presenting to you how I think. The moment I begin thinking about shrinking my aperture size as I go into the upper register, that's usually when my sound begins to sound pinched and I start crunching my lips and eventually nothing comes out. It's too easy for me to over manipulate my lips. I need something else to think about. I need another way to go about doing this, even though there is no doubt in my mind that my aperture is definitely changing sizes as I go from the lower register into the upper register and back down. No doubt. I just don't want to think about it. So what do I think of instead? I choose to zero in on the movement of my jaw. In fact, what I have found for me that works very well is thinking of my tongue position and my jaw as one unit, one apparatus that is going to help me change the size, the diameter of my airstream immediately. So practically speaking, it would look like this. That's what I do. When I ascend, it's not just my tongue that is involved. It's my jaw changing position. And what I have found is I can shift registers way quicker and easier than ever before once I started including the jaw in my movements. Again, you might not have heard too much about the jaw. You might not like what you hear. That's fine. That's cool. You can disagree with me. This is what I do. For me, the tongue-jaw apparatus that works as one creates the mouth environment for any note on the trumpet. So it's time to figure out how to put all of this together and give you a way to practice this technique if you're interested. I've given this a name. I call it the horizontal approach. And the horizontal approach to developing your range consists of 3 components. Now, before I give you the 3 components of the horizontal approach, I got to say this. How do you know if you're doing anything on the trumpet correctly? I have 2 guiding principles. Number 1, it sounds great. Number 2, equally important to me, it feels easy. The real shift in my approach to the instrument, the real shift in my range was led by these two guiding principles. It sounds great and it feels easy. And I cannot have one without the other. So here's essentially the formula that helped me break through to my current level of range. It is the tongue-jaw apparatus plus the lower body breath support plus a horizontal airstream equals a centered tone in all registers. These are the three areas that must be calibrated just right for any given note on the trumpet. Purpose of the tongue-jaw apparatus is to create the mouth environment for a given note on the trumpet, whether it's a high note, whether it's a middle note, whether it's a low note. And I focus on the tongue and the jaw so that I do not have to focus on my lips. This takes the pressure off of my lips, and my lips can just focus on vibrating. The second aspect is the lower body breath support. And what I want to say about this is make sure as you engage the lower body that that doesn't necessarily translate into adding air. We're not adding air to the airstream that's already existing. We are simply adding an energy from our lower body in order to excite the airstream that we already have moving. You understand? This is crucially important. We're not going to blow harder in the upper register. There's no room for that air to go. All that leads to is back pressure, headaches, and sadness. I learned how to play high by doing it in a soft manner and under control. So we add the lower body without adding air. And then the third part of the formula, a horizontal airstream. That's why I call it the horizontal approach. How do you know when you're using enough tongue, enough jaw, what have you? When the note that you're playing feels horizontal. So if I want to come in on a low C, I have to create a certain mouth environment to do that. What about a G on top of the staff? You see, to me, those two notes felt like I was blowing in the exact same direction. They were both horizontal. But the way I was able to make it horizontal is by utilizing the tongue, jaw apparatus, and then a little bit of energy down here. Right now, I don't really need that much energy, honestly, from my lower body at this point, but it is engaged. What about a high D? That note I felt like I had my air behind that note, and it was right there. I didn't feel that that note was even a little bit high because I created the right mouth environment and then made sure that my lips were not crunching or tightening in order to achieve that note. Now, that may not be the easiest thing for you right now, especially if you've been used to manipulating your lips in order to try and play high notes. This formula is going to help you break out of that habit because instead you're just going to ride the elevator to the top, which is your tongue and your jaw. So I'm going to end this video with an exercise, one last exercise that ties this whole thing together, that allows you to put this formula into practice. And I have a really fancy name for it. It's just called the left-handed exercise. Technically, it's the left-handed exercise on harmonics. So I want you to start either on a low C or a middle G. If you're new to this, then start in a middle G. It might be easier. And what you're going to do is actually sit back in your chair. Dare I say, you could even lay back in your chair. I bet you no teacher has ever told you to lay back in your chair. What this exercise does is it isolates those very areas that I just discussed. The tongue in the jaw, the lower body breath support, yet every other part of your body is going to be as relaxed as possible. You're going to do this exercise soft. I'm going to start it right now on the middle G, and then I'm going to raise my tongue in my jaw, apparatus, to get me into a C, and then an E. Just go up each partial of the harmonics series, and I'm just going to keep going up. Now, the higher I go, I'm going to keep this exercise soft, but regardless, I'm going to have to intensify with my lower body. So you may see me kind of shifting a little bit as I go higher, but the whole purpose of this is so that I'm blowing in a horizontal manner and still achieving all of these notes. I don't really feel like I'm playing that loud, to be honest with you. My shoulders were relaxed, my chest was open, my neck was tall, but I was chilling back in my seat. The two main areas that I was focused on were my inner mouth, tongue, jaw, and my lower body breath support. If you think this approach can help you, then I'd love for you to try this exercise. Rewatch this video to make sure you caught all the little details of how I'm speaking about it. And if you find it a little easier to reach some notes that maybe you haven't reached before, let me know in the comments. Remember, if at any point you hear a cloudy sound or fuzz or some kind of graininess to the sound, or if the sound cuts off completely, that is a clear indication that something changed in your lips, because I guarantee you that sound wasn't happening when you started the exercise. Wherever you start, if you start on that middle G, you want your lips to think that every other note is a middle G. Perhaps you need to exaggerate the movement of the tongue and the jaw in order to leave your lips alone. But I'm constantly listening. You know, this needs to sound great. Like I said, it needs to feel easy. If I'm playing along and I start hearing some fuzziness in the sound, that's a clear sign. Oh, my lips are trying to help out. They need to sit in that corner and behave. And they just need to vibrate, nothing more. I hope you enjoyed this video on Jazz Mind. If you like this video, please peep some of my other videos on this channel. As it is growing, and make sure you like the video, and if you got some value from this video, if it helped you to play some notes a lot easier up in the upper register, hey, that means it's time to subscribe to my channel, because you don't want to miss these nuggets that are coming at you down the pike here. Be well, everybody, and don't forget, go check out my Bandcamp. The link is in the description below. My new album is ready for purchase on Bandcamp exclusively. That's the only place you can find it right now, whether it's the physical CD, whether it's the digital download. Help support me, help support my music. Let me know which tune is your favorite. I'll see everybody on the next video. Peace.